if you're having to wear multiple masks, like a mask with your partner and a mask with your friends and a mask at work, and
Mhm.
having to remember what mask to wear and what particular scenario. And heaven forbid I show this part of myself to these people.
If anybody has struggled with that, you know how exhausting it is because then you have to remember, what did I tell this person? And then what did I tell this person? And then after a while of doing that, the compounding effect, the exponential effect of that, now you have to hold up all of these half truths, if you will.
Well, Jaggers, I'm really, as always, excited to dive in with you again and see if I can't just like pick apart your wealth of knowledge that you have. And yesterday, I guided a breathwork practice for 13 individuals here at one of the local studios. And there was a couple of things that I've started to notice continue to come up time and time again in these sessions, that people are articulating what they're moving through or what their experience or what comes up for them in the session. And they now are happening so often that I'm starting to ask the bigger question if it
Mm.
is, in fact, individuals moving through something themselves, or are they actually tapping more into the collective consciousness, the collective stockpile of emotions, if you will. And so I'd love if you can just like expand on that a little bit. Like, a lot of people communicate having this like sensation of like anxiety that comes up as they're entering into like a breathwork session, as example, especially if
Mm.
it's a group environment. They're engaging in this practice maybe for the first time, maybe for the first time in a group, or maybe they've done it a couple of times, but this group is nobody that they know, where maybe they start to feel this thing bubbling up that maybe we could label as like, social anxiety, if you will. But having noticed this and having recognized this multiple times in many different sessions with many different individuals, it again brings us back to this question: is this actually an individual experience, or is it somebody that's actually tapping into something greater, something more?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Adam. And um, it's always going to be both, always. Because, you know, when I was a body worker, and I'll give you an example of this, we all have the exact same anatomy. Like we all have the same amount of bones, the same amount of muscles. We all have the same amount, we all have the same anatomy, but it's all just a little bit different based on our own uniqueness, right? There's only one Adam, there's only one me, but we're all human, right?
Yeah.
And so it's these experiences, and as you start to work with people more, which I know you've done a ton of sessions, you start to see the same things because we're all human, but they're all unique to the individual, right? It's a unique experience to the individual, but often it's mirroring a bigger thing that we're all going through. So is it an individual experience? Is it a collective experience? In a group breathwork session, everyone is in their own unique individual experience, just like life, but we're all doing it together and we're processing things for the collective, but individually.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's always going to be both. We're always going to be processing the, Thomas Hubel says at some point when you start to work on healing your own trauma and healing yourself, you're always going to get met with the next level of resistance and the next level of growth that has to happen. And that becomes relational. It
Mhm.
becomes collective, right? So a lot of people start their healing journey in a very individual way, but then they realize at some point that gets capped because it's relational in itself.
So how can someone start to differentiate between what is actually theirs, like what's an emotion that's coming up that's wanting
Mm.
to move through them that actually has to do with their own personal experience, versus when someone's moving through something that's maybe more collective or ancestral or just maybe even someone that they're tapping into that's in that room that isn't giving themselves that permission, but maybe this person has the space within their own system that they can kind of take that on and allow it to move through. So like how do you start to recognize like what's yours and what's somebody else's?
Yeah. For me, it's probably best to actually not separate those in the beginning,
Mm,
because if somebody else, if what does it matter actually? Like that, I asked myself the question, why do I need to know if it's somebody else's or if it's mine? If it's coming up, then it's coming up inside of me. And so why don't I just, what's the resistance, whether or not it's somebody else's or mine? I might be processing things for other people in my family or other people collectively, and it might not be my responsibility, but if it's coming up for me and wants to bubble up in my body, what's the resistance? So I think that at a certain point, when we're like in interpersonal dynamics, it's so important to know, mm, like, what am I feeling in my body? It's not necessarily, am I carrying something else? Am I carrying it from somebody else? But what is my experience going on in my body? It might be triggered because of somebody else. It might be something that is not like, did not happen to me in this lifetime. Maybe it's an ancestral thing that is happening. But what does it matter whether or not like, if it's coming up and it's true for me in my body and I'm connected to it, then it's asking to be moved through me. It's kind of like, we don't get to choose our parents, or we don't get to choose a lot of the stuff that we go through, but is it our responsibility to move through it? Yes.
yeah, I think that really brings up this idea of like when we're an adult, that is our
Hmm.
responsibility is to take that
Yeah.
action to how are we showing up? What patterns are we applying that we've either pulled onto ourselves or we've adopted from another individual? But how can we actually come back to this like authentic expression, like we've talked about in previous
Mm.
podcasts? And since that's kind of coming up right now, that's another thing that came up in yesterday's session was someone reflecting the experience of, and I could see him in the session. He kept on doing this and like without any context of like what it is he's experiencing. I'm just like, okay, he's moving through something and I'm not quite sure exactly what that is, but I just kind of held space for what was moving through. And then at the end of the session he was sharing that he had the physical sensation of wearing a mask. Like he
Mm.
could feel the strap cutting into the back of his head, like it was just on really really tightly. So he was trying to remove that mask and then was met by another mask and then would like remove that mask and was met by another mask. And at the end of it he said he shared that he had the realization was that he has this deep deep desire to be seen, and
Mm.
yet he had the realization that he's not even allowing himself to truly be seen because he's wearing masks in so many different areas of his life.
Yeah.
So he begged the questions like, where does this come from? Like, did I create these masks? Did I get these masks from other people? Yeah, I'd say he was probably in his like late 40s, early 50s. So obviously has been wearing masks for a long period of time
Yeah.
in his
Yeah.
life. But this contradictory sensation of wanting to be seen and yet
Yeah.
not allowing himself to be seen because of wearing this mask. And like I really resonate with his share and shared that with him of like
Same.
I have had that same sensation of like recognizing I'm this person with this group of friends, or I'm this person with my family. And it's one of the things that I love so much about the somatic community is that I've always been welcomed just as me. I've never felt that I had to wear a mask or show up as
Yeah.
any particular individual, which then creates this stickiness within my life where I recognize, okay, in this one community, I'm okay just being me. But in these other
Yeah.
areas of my life, it's almost like I can't show up as that full person because it's so different from the box that they've placed me in. So if individuals have this experience, like how can they start working through to shed those masks to really reflect themselves authentically in their life?
Yeah. This is such a deep topic, Adam, because at our core, like at our like on an evolutionary standpoint, we crave to be seen because when we're seen, it means that we're connected to each other.
Right.
But at the same time, a lot of us think that we need to wear different masks or filter certain parts of us or maybe hold back certain emotions so that we're not alienated from the tribe, right? We want to fit in. But at the same time, it's this contradictory thing where it's like, cool, I want to fit in, but I actually am not going to be actually seen and connected to if I'm holding up a mask. And so it's something that all of us struggle with truly. And part of this goes back to the initial question of like, is it mine or is it theirs? What am I processing for me? Or what am I feeling something that is mine or is it theirs? The first step for most people, and if you think about it in our world, like if everybody took care of themselves, if everybody was actually first worried about themselves, and we did a podcast on like how selfishness is actually a good thing, and it doesn't mean that um like you're not caring about other people, but you're looking at you as the number one priority, your body, what you're feeling, and you're occupying, yourself fully. Something that I've experienced, and a good sort of example of this is projection. Like if people are projecting a certain thing onto you and you can feel it. uh, I heard this one time and it just rang true in every one of my cells. People can't project something onto you if you're fully occupying yourself. Like there's not space inside of you to be projected upon if you're occupying your own vulnerable, like your own authenticity. And so when it comes to wearing masks, is like the masks are a it is a false, it's providing a false sense of connection, meaning that if I'm wearing a mask, people can only connect to that masked part of me that's actually not me. So then I'm actually not in connection with them. It's like, um, if I'm a tree and you're a tree and we're trying to connect at our roots and I'm wearing a mask or I'm like holding back certain part of myself, well, we can only touch branches. We're not going to actually be able to connect from the root source that's giving us nutrients together, right? The
Yeah.
deep nutrition that we can share together. And so part of it is learning how to occupy yourself fully. That's why, we teach so much somatic awareness. What am I feeling? What's going on in my body? And that's like the first step. But then the second step of that, which we dive deep into in like the communication parts in our course, because the second part of that is, can I actually communicate that to people? And can I actually tell people my truth without the mask? Because the masks are the people pleasing part of us that's trying to fit into a certain area because we want connection. But then at the same time, we're never actually going to get deep, true connection because it's only going to reach as far as the mask, right? We're not going to get
Right.
those deep root connection of nutrition, like at a deep connected level.
Yeah. So hearing you say that, I'm curious if wearing masks is also kind of this like self-inflicted safety mechanism, because maybe there's parts of yourself that you haven't fully accepted, or there's parts of yourself that you're
Mhm.
shunning or pushing away or ashamed of, and so therefore you wear this mask to look like you're all, perfectly put together and you've got nothing wrong with
Yeah.
you. But this is actually what's stopping these deep connections from happening, because you are also not deeply connecting to yourself, because there's certain parts of yourself that you're pushing away. So like, how can we start to lean into more of that like self-acceptance and accepting all of those parts? And
Yeah.
if we do that, will the masks just like naturally fall away?
I wanna pause you for a second, and maybe we can actually try this little exercise that people
Yeah.
can do at home. So this is a powerful prompt to do with people in your life, and it requires you to be pretty vulnerable and pretty honest. But the prompt is, Adam, right now, I want you to see me as this, but I'd rather be loved for who I am. And so, well, let's try it. Maybe we do a couple rounds here
Yeah.
and just so people can have an understanding of this. And, it's best to do this obviously in connections where you feel safe, where you can be honest and in truth and vulnerable. But beyond that, like, it'll be a practice of you being honest, true, and vulnerable. And sometimes that's the only way into it is through it. So, right now, Adam, I want you to see me as I am all knowing and wise, but I'd rather be loved for who I actually am.
It's interesting because hearing you say both of those statements, it creates this divide and almost like there's two parts of myself that are trying to be like, okay, I can see you like all knowing and wise because like
Yeah,
you are the
yeah.
sage, like that's easy to
Yeah,
see your
yeah.
role, but then the contradictory side of me is like, but to love you in your fullest capacity for just as you are goes beyond
Mhm.
that simple role.
Yeah. It's more for me to bring awareness to myself of what is the mask that I'm wearing, right? You could look at this exercise as like it really just matters. I mean, yes, you're being seen and heard by the people that you're doing this with, but it's mostly for you to become aware of like, how am I, like, maybe it's true. Maybe like I do know a lot about these things that we're talking about and I've experienced those. But even then, like, the what are the garments, the clothes, the cloaks that I am kind of wearing that I'm trying to like spruce up a little bit, right?
Mhm.
So
Oh,
maybe it's true, but at the same time, like, let's just try it.
okay. I think I've got this. I think I've got this.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, I want you to see me as the perfect podcast host that knows exactly what to say. But I also want you to love me just as I am.
Mm, yeah. Adam, right now, and maybe I could even say anybody who's listening to this, I want you to see me as I'm a professional and like I'm someone to be respected and I know exactly what I'm talking about all the time. But I'd rather be loved for, who I am.
Hmm. Okay, so let me broaden it. Everyone that's listening, I
Yeah.
want you to see me as the ideal instructor, the perfect mentor, somebody who has the answer to every possible question you could bring to me. But what I would love more than that is if you could love me just as me.
Yeah. So the point being with this exercise and the point being with masks is that maybe the mask that we're wearing is actually it's actually true. It's not that it's a false identity, but really what the masks are is that I'm only showing you one part of myself. Like, I'm not necessarily, maybe some people are just like putting on a whole new identity that might not even be them, but that's rarely the case. Usually it's that it's the masks are not, it's not something that we're wearing. It's more that we're filtering certain parts out. And that filtering process is the same thing that we speak about, such as parasitic tension, meaning that it's taking energy from me to push things down and to hold back certain things. It's taking energy from me to hold back, you know, the full truth of who I am when I'm just wearing a mask. So it's like um, this plugging process of the fullness of my truth that wants to come out, where I'm going to plug certain parts so that it's curated in a certain way, and that's the masks necessarily. So it might be more helpful to not think about something that you're putting on like a mask, but more as like I'm filtering myself, so so that there's like a lens in how you view me, right?
Mhm.
But then I'll never be able to actually be seen and connected to.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're tying this into parasitic tension because it does take so much effort to
It's draining.
remember to put your mask on, but also,
Yeah.
especially if you're having to wear multiple masks, like a mask with your partner and a mask with your friends and a mask at work, and
Hmm.
having to remember what mask to wear in what particular scenario. And heaven forbid I show this part of myself to these people. And it's so draining. It's so draining to not be
Yeah.
able to just be the fullest expression of yourself, regardless of who you're with. So
Yeah.
I
If
guess,
anybody, if I'll say this, if
yeah.
anybody has struggled in their life with lying, which I can remember periods of my life where, yeah, I really struggled with like telling the truth.
Mhm.
And it wasn't that I was creating these massive like lies that were completely different than what was going on. It was that I was holding back the full truth. I forget what they call that. There's a word for it. It's going to come to me at some point. But I'm curating what the truth is. And if anybody has struggled with that, you know how exhausting it is, because then you have to remember, what did I tell this person? And then what did I tell this person? And then after a while of doing that, the compounding effect, the exponential effect of that, now you have to hold up all of these half truths, if you will, which becomes incredibly draining to your nervous system. Instead of like, I'm just me and I'm the full truth and I'm telling everybody that. Therefore, I don't have to fluctuate and change and hold certain parts back. And then, because a lot of us have struggled with this in our life, it might be pretty painful in the beginning, because it's going to reorganize a ton of your relationships. You might have certain people in your life that are connected to you because they like the mask.
Mhm.
And that's a whole other painful process to go through. And I've gone through this in my life where it's like, that's why we call it self-discovery, because somatic breathwork is actually a tool to get to the core essence of ourself. And it's not that who we are right now is a false representation of us, unless we're kind of deep in it in that sort of way. But maybe it's a consistently pulling back the layers of the parasitic tension that's almost like armor around us, that's blocking the expression of our truth so that people can actually connect to us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm kind of starting to see part of a thread here of like this idea of wearing masks is partly about wanting to be seen in a certain way, as a certain reflection to
Hmm.
certain people, because maybe there's a story in our head that if they look at me as this way, then they're going to trust me, or they're going to want to work with me,
Yeah.
or this facade, if you will, that we try to portray to the world, thinking that's actually going to bring us into connection with the people that we want, not
Hmm.
realizing that it's actually taking us further away from connecting to those people
Yeah.
because we're not actually showing up as authentically. What I'm trying to get to here is, do you think that this is partly because maybe we're just truly fully afraid to see ourselves, that it's easier to like have these masks or facades to just see ourselves as that person instead of fully seeing ourselves for everything that we are?
Yeah. Is it easier to help somebody else than it is for yourself?
Hell yes.
It's 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 always easier to go fix somebody else's shit than it is to work on your own, right?
Yeah.
And also society rewards that in a big way. Um, we are rewarded culturally for what we do and not who we are. So in my opinion, at the core of it is that like we haven't found value in our beingness of just who we are versus we get rewarded for what we're doing. And another way to say that is like I get rewarded for the career that I do and the identity that I've built around that. I get rewarded for the skill sets that I have and the identity that comes along with that. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. The only time it becomes an issue because all of us are playing an identity in our life, right? We all have an ego, but what the issue is when that ego, that unique expression of ourselves or that identity is um, locked into place from a wounded part of ourselves, right?
Mhm.
Maybe the mask that I'm wearing or the filter that I'm creating is coming from a place that I don't feel worthy. It's coming from like a deep wound of I don't feel worthy. So I'm going to be seeking out all opportunities to make me feel like I'm worthy. Which what's that gonna do? That's gonna it's almost like a repulsive energy. It's a needy energy, right? But if I'm wearing an identity or um, it's not even like a mask, but it's a movement of energy from my system that's in full truth of my essence, or at least as connected to my essence as I am right now. Maybe that is like I'm a teacher, I'm a sage, or I'm here to help people with human connection. Well, I'm taking on that identity right now, and maybe it's supportive of me, and it's good for me to be seen in that way. But at some point, if I continue my self discovery process, and this is why we are a verb, and certain chapters of our life are, they're going to be in alignment with us. And then at some point, they're not going to be in alignment anymore because it's just like chapters in a book that I'm going to continue to go through that process. And it's not about the specific identity that I'm embodying right now. It's like, is that identity that I'm embodying, is that the most connected version of myself that I'm aware of right now? And the last thing I'll say is that most of us we can't get to that. We can't get to that connection of how our I call it the unique expression of ourselves or expressing ourselves from that identity because we've curated ourselves from wounds for so long. And those masks are the adaptive response of those wounds because it probably helped us in a certain moment to feel more connected, but then over time it becomes this maladaptive thing that's going to block us from true connection, right? I
Right,
don't know if I
right.
was able to say that and wrap it all together.
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, I can't speak on behalf of the audience, but like that
Yeah.
totally resonates and makes me think of this like and we can see this on social media all the time. And I think this is one of those sayings of like, never meet your hero because they may not
Yeah,
uphold to the expectations you've placed upon them, right? Because
exactly.
especially in social media, it's this highlight reel. Everyone's
Mhm.
showcasing the best parts of themselves. I think
Yeah.
very few people showcase when things are messy or when things are falling apart. We only see them disappear from social media. Then when things are good again, they pop back up. And
Yeah.
it's this like everyone wants to be seen and heard so bad, that sometimes this effort to be seen and heard, instead of coming off authentically, comes off as like attention seeking, or you're only having this certain persona because that's the persona that's gaining the attention that allows you to be seen,
Mhm.
but is only a small facet of who you actually are, that at least in my experience, inevitably leads to burnout, because you can only uphold being a certain portion of yourself so long before the rest of yourself is like, I'm done trying to be this person. It makes me think of that Jim Carrey quote that you shared a while
Yeah.
back, if you'd share that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of the times we become depressed because we need a deep rest from the current avatar that we're playing in the world,
Yeah.
and that we need that time out to reconnect to ourselves, because whatever version or identity that we're playing in this point in time is actually not, and it's requiring so much energy to uphold that we get exhausted. And we talked a lot about anxiety and depression, and anxiety is the bubbling up of truth,
Mhm.
I think, in our last podcast. But the first thing is that I think, like, when it comes to social media and the internet and everything online, is that you have to realize that it's not real. That's like the first thing, is like, it's not real. And a lot of us, we act we it's a slippery slope of playing the game, because it's a game. You're playing a game, and it's not actually real. And this is why I talk about, like, within somatic, we are helping restore the human internet, if you will, like, through the nervous system. Our like, somatic breath work, when I look at it visually in my mind of the ripple effect of what's going on, it's restoring the connection and the electrical connection that's inside of our body, so that we can restore the human to human connection with each other. And our nervous system is only designed to deal with our immediate reality. It's not necessarily designed to look at social media and have these thousands of connections all of the time, and to continuously showcase all of the parts of myself. That would be incredibly exhausting. So we're never going to be able to showcase, like, our full self on there. Like, we have to understand that it's a game, and it's like it's a facade in a way. And a lot of us, we lose ourselves in it, perhaps, and I've definitely done that. um, Playing this game, you have to remember that it's a game. But outside of that is like, well, what really matters is human to human connection and connection to ourselves. And if we can maintain that, that's why, in my opinion, as technology is continuing to grow, we can't put that back in the box. Like, it's just, we can't put AI back in the box. We can't put social media back in the box. It's something that we're going to have to continuously deal with, which, as that grows, we are going to need more and more tools, techniques, resources to stay even deeply connected to ourselves. It's like, if this is growing, a tree can only grow as tall as its roots run deep. And if you're putting all of your energy and your awareness into the growing of technology, but you're not growing the roots down deep into yourself, then you're going to eventually have issues.
Yeah. It makes me think of this last fall. We had a huge windstorm roll through the Pacific Northwest called a bomb cyclone.
Wow.
First time in my 40 years being in the Pacific Northwest I've ever experienced anything like that. But what was interesting is a lot of the shallow rooting trees got toppled over, roots and all,
Mm,
ripped up right out of the ground. But all the trees that were deep rooters were able to just sway in the wind. Were able to just keep strong and keep upholding. So how do we really start looking at ourselves, looking at the path that we've walked throughout our lives, and being able to recognize where we have shallow roots versus where we have deep roots? And how do we continue to cultivate deepening our roots so that when the storms of life start to show up, as they inevitably do, you can just sway with that storm instead of being toppled over?
yeah. This is such a good question, Adam. And I'll say, I don't fully know the answer, but I can tell you practices and the process that I'm going through to like do this for myself. I
Please.
mean, that was so well said. Uh, First off, is that people who have rigid identities, they'll end up breaking. They'll end up becoming depressed because we are change. We are a verb. Uh, it's one thing to say you're a verb. It's another thing to actually live that. Like to truly live that is if you sit with that for long enough, it will break your brain. It will. um, and another way to kind of say that is that you are an iteration. And this is something that I struggle with within my work. And maybe other people struggle with this is that you have a hard time putting things out there because you think that, okay, if I put it out there, then, oh my God, everyone's going to see me for that and everyone's going to judge me for that. And then that's a part of my identity versus you're an iteration. And if you truly believed that you're an iteration, like you wouldn't be scared of version one, right? But for me, I've been sitting with this idea of what is the part of me that's never changed? That's a powerful question to sit with. I've been journaling on that often lately because there is a part of me that is iterating and changing and expressing itself in different ways. But what is the part of me that's never changed? And if you really tune into that, which will require some deep excavation, and I'd be curious, Adam, like if I asked you that question, like what comes up for you? What's the what's the part of you that's never changed?
Honestly, when you first said that, I just felt this like it felt like you just punched me in the chest, and like
Dude,
I've literally got like I'm holding back the tears that are actually wanting to come up because that's a question no one's ever asked me.
yeah.
That's a question I've never asked myself and like never even thought to think of like what part of me hasn't changed throughout my life.
Mhm.
And like if I think about that part of me right now, it's like it's the little kid inside of me that's always believed dragons were real.
Exactly.
You
Well,
know, it
what's deeper than that? Like what's behind that? Because it's not about dragons.
it's accepting that there has always been a part of me that knows there's something more to this reality than what everyone portrays there is.
Yeah. Is it maybe a part of you that's deeply curious or
Yeah.
in wonder, right? What else? What part of you like and you don't have to get it right now, but maybe just you can iterate on it.
Yeah.
It's if you say it, then it doesn't mean that it's completely true. But what comes up for you? What are maybe some parts of you that's never changed?
I've always prided myself in being that person, even when I was a little kid, that people could just openly share with. I've always prided
Mm,
myself in being a good listener.
yeah.
And I think that's something that's never changed. The depth in which I've learned to listen has changed, but my
Mm.
desire to truly hear people has never changed.
So curiosity, childlike wonder,
Yeah.
um, open to possibility beyond what is seen with the eye, and also, yeah, a deep listener. The part of you never changed. Anything else?
My love for nature.
Your love for nature. Absolutely. Anything else that's coming up?
I'd say in saying my love for nature, I would actually like to reiterate that as
Yeah.
my wonder and awe of nature.
Mm. The wonder and awe for nature and the natural world.
Yeah.
So, after you sit with these questions, the part of me, and like I said, I don't know the answer, but this has been really, it's been powerful for me to sit with these questions because when I connect to that part of me that's never changed, well, I can see how those parts of me that have never changed are just expressing them differently. Like there's just a different expression of them in different chapters of my life. So
Mm,
those parts of you that have never changed, when you're connected to them, they've probably been there the whole time, but are just being expressed in different ways. Now that like you have found yourself in as a practitioner, as an instructor in a modality that requires you to be in curiosity and wonder, and requires you to have deep listening, and requires you to be able to see the power of nature inside of someone's body, and to be absolutely in awe of that. Like the more that your life and your identity gets connected to those parts of you that never change, the less energetic drag you're going to have, the less masks or filtering you're going to wear. That's going to be siphoning your energy, so that energy actually gets to show up for you fully right here, right now, in who you are. And it might look different and change different at whichever chapter
mhm.
you're in, right?
Yeah,
Who knows what you'll be doing 5, 10 years from now? Maybe it's somatic breath work, but maybe it's something that's even closer to those parts of you that have never changed, right? Your true essence.
right. It's in hearing you say that, it made me realize that there's, like you said, many different iterations and different chapters.
Exactly.
But as I've leaned more and more into this role that I find myself in now, that is, as you said, requiring me to really not only to continue to do the work for myself so I can show up from that authentic place, but to also recognize where are the areas in my life that I'm still wearing the masks? Where are the areas in my
Hmm.
life that I'm not showing up as my truest self? And it's this constant invitation to
Yeah.
not to keep using this word, but to reiterate this constant revisal of how can I continue to let go of everything that I'm not so that I can hold on to everything that I am and continue to sharpen that.
Yeah. One of the one of the best practices for this, and you probably agree to this, but is if you're in a romantic partnership like that, that's always the playground for all of this to happen, because it will give you real-time feedback of, where am I not allowing this person to love me?
Mm,
Where am I not allowing this person to love me by not telling them the truth? Or being actually where I'm at right now, or hedging how I feel, or worrying about like, oh, I'm actually not in a good mood right now. And I don't want that to affect them. So I'm going to like just try to maintain this jolly chipper attitude. But really, actually, I want to be loved for who I am. Right. So
yeah.
I'm actually robbing that person of their ability to love me by not showing them my truth. And it could look in a lot of different ways. I was just working with somebody who, they have some vices in their life, and they are really afraid to tell their partner about some vices that they're dealing with. And they said they've been so honest and so clean and clear in this relationship, but there's just a couple little things that they're afraid that they're going to be judged for, or they're
Sure.
afraid that this person isn't going to love them anymore. And it was interesting, as I was coaching this person through that, um, they ended up sharing with their partner, that they were using some of these vices. And a lot of the times it's shame or guilt that holds bad habits in place. They're the locks that hold these bad habits in place. Shame and guilt, you could think of them as like emotion blockers.
Mm.
They are like the emotion that sits on top of the true emotion, that blocks it from being able to be expressed or move through us.
They're like the stagnators.
They're the stagnators, exactly. So when I shared with his partner, um, this, and his partner was like, I love you no matter what. And like like, let me, like, you sharing that with me, I don't have any judgment. Like, I just want to love you for who you are. And when you hide certain things, it's like, well, maybe that part of you that's hiding it is actually just seeking love and connection. And you're utilizing the vice to get that love and connection. And the shame around it is the thing that's holding it into place. And so when I can love you, that shame falls away. And, I've been working with him for quite a few months now, but yeah, he's like no longer utilizing those vices. And truly it was the love and connection that oftentimes are at the core of it, right? I can't remember, it's either Johann Hari or Gabor Mate that says, like, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but it's connection.
Mhm.
Because most of the time we're utilizing those addictions or vices because we're wanting a deeper connection to ourselves.
Yeah. I remember you saying previously that most conflict comes from what we're just talking about, these parts of yourself
Hmm.
that you're not wanting another to see, but by you not allowing another to see, it's creating this limitation on truly how deep that other person can connect with you or love you or be open in
Hmm.
communication with you. How do we begin to really start to recognize whether it's in our romantic relationships or friendships or work relationships when these parts of us are coming up? Like how did you help this client to recognize that it's not the addiction to the vices that's the problem, it's the parts that aren't wanting to be seen or the parts that you're afraid to see? Like how do you begin to bring that awareness for someone that's listening to this that maybe is feeling resonance to what you're saying but is like I don't really know, are my habits or the vices that I go to, are they actually attached to something that I don't want to see if they themselves can't even see it?
Yes. There's a lot
I
there. The
know,
first thing, it's
multifaceted.
okay. Yeah. No, the first thing, and there's a lot of juice there. The first thing is that most conflict is just a cry out for connection. It's not like I'm trying to attack you. It's that most conflict is actually, I just want to be seen. I just want to be understood, more than anything. And we talk a lot about this, that it's actually not being seen or heard, it's
Mhm.
being felt. And I want to know that, like, you can hold my nervous system and you can host me inside of yourself. And that's like the deep root nutrient of connection, versus like I do this exercise often with people, is like, if you're listening to me right now or you're watching this, like, you're actually taking me in right now through your eyes, through your ears. And how far in are you letting me? Like, is it just from your ears and your eyes to your brain in your head? Or can you feel me in your heart? Or can you, like, host me in your belly? Like, how far deep are you actually letting me in? And oftentimes we can only let a person in as deeply as we're connected to our own body. So if we're stuck in our head, that's going to limit how deep we're going to be able to connect with another person. And that's like the basics of attunement. But most conflict is that there's something off and we're not resonating within each other. And so we want to be felt, because it creates a deep sense of safety within us. We're mammals. We want to co-regulate. We want to know that, you know, we're in this together. And then deeper than that, um, when it comes to like the the expression of this happening through different vices, um, like, beyond anything is we want to feel the non-judgmental, like, welcoming from another person, more than anything, because most of the time we're not telling them because we're afraid that they're going to judge us, or we're afraid that it's going to change their perspective on us. Um, and the way that I usually work with them is this idea of subtraction by addition, meaning that I don't want to take away the things from them because those things are probably giving something to them. Like the last thing you want to do is take away the thing that's providing connection to them
Sure.
because it's not going to work. So if you can figure out what is that thing giving them, or what is that thing, like what is the desire beneath the thing, and most of the time it is connection in some sort of way. How do we create an environment or a container for them to start adding in those things? And a lot of the times, the subtraction will naturally happen when we start to add in the things that we're missing, right? When people feel deeply connected in their life, they don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. Like when you love your life, when you love what you do, when you love the people around you, most of the time you don't always want it. You don't have the desire to be altered in some sort of way because you love your life. You feel connected. You don't want to miss it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We have gone many different avenues again today
Yeah.
and just this beautiful deep dive in this conversation. But I'd love to just take like, our last, 10 or 15 minutes or so together today and offer up to those of us that are joining live here in school, based upon what we talked about today, are there any questions that have sprung up for you? Anything that's bubbled up for you? Just drop it down in the chat. Let us know. Feel free to do as I've been doing this whole podcast and picking apart Jagger's brain and wisdom and see what wants to come from that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll give some time for those to ask some questions if those come up. Um, I have a question for you, Adam.
Okay.
What like right now, as you said earlier, um, as you're becoming more deeply connected to yourself, like are there certain areas where you're craving more connection to
Mm.
yourself?
So it's interesting that you say this because something that I've realized over this last year, right around my last birthday, shortly before it, I did my first solo hike. And I realized at how spending time just by myself without the internet, without distractions, without another person to
Mm,
distract me, but literally just being in my own space is something that's actually really valuable for me.
yeah,
That actually gave me the time to start to really look at the areas in my life that either needed more attention or needed less attention. And so I really
yeah,
resonated with this idea of like sometimes subtraction is addition, because
yeah.
sometimes it's a matter of we need to add more things back into our life that bring us into resonance once again, that bring us
Mhm.
into that alignment with what's true for us, in order to recognize what are we engaging in, what are we carrying, what are we doing that actually is out of alignment, that it
Yeah.
isn't helping us to be more and more in tune with that natural expression that wants to come through. And it's been really interesting since starting to work full time with you guys that like there are certain facets of my life that are dying in a
Yeah.
way. I spent 20 years of my life being known as the AV guy, the TV guy.
Mhm.
And that part of myself, this last time that I was out solo in nature, I recognized is ready to die.
Mm.
That mask, that persona, that person that I've spent half of my life being is ready to actually be let go of.
Mm.
And in trying to still be and hold on to that persona is actually keeping me from fully stepping into this path and this persona.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we always have to create the space for the new things to fall in, right?
Mhm.
I'm in Sedona, and I went to the Buddhist temple here, the stupa, and next to it they have a medicine wheel which is it's a native tradition, and it's just a circle with a cross in the middle, and it has the four directions. And you know, like I just said, the idea of um, it's subtraction by addition, which can help us when we're dealing with those sort of vices or the things that are we want to fall away. But the medicine wheel, I just did one for myself, and it's a powerful tool because it follows nature, where you start in the west, and the west is the setting sun, and it's like, what parts of myself need to be sunsetted right now? Like, and it's the element of water. What needs to be washed clean? And it's the season of fall. And part of it's the death process, right? We can't become the new version if we haven't let ourselves at certain parts of ourselves die off. And from there, you go into the north, which is the winter, which is like rest, and which is um, going fully inward and connecting. And if I don't spend that time resting and connecting, well, then when I move into the east, which is the rising sun, which is the planting of seeds, which is like what new parts of myself want to emerge, then I'll never be able to reap the harvest when I get to the south. Right. So going through that process of nature, and something that's been really like on top of that, which has been really interesting, is even if you love like all of the things that you do in your life, like I would imagine, listening to you with somatic and just in your journey of growth here. And, you know, I know you have a deeply loving relationship as well. Just because you, um, love like all of the things that you're doing doesn't also mean that you still don't need that solitude, that moments for yourself. I'm in a relationship that's incredible, and we genuinely just love spending time together. So we oftentimes will like forget that we need solo time.
Mm.
I love what I do as well, so I can just let that take up all of the space in my life, and let my relationship take up all the space in my life, that I can forget how beneficial that solitude time is. But if I never do that, well, it's not that I don't love the people or the things that I'm doing,
Right.
but it's that I need that space, because there is a nature that's happening inside of me that needs to be weeded constantly, and it's really hard to do that unless you're really spending time alone for yourself.
100%.
But I think we got some questions coming in.
Let's see here. So, okay, we'll start at the top. When we've worn masks for so long, how do we even recognize who we really are underneath, especially when those masks once kept us safe?
Hmm. I think that, I'll say there's no right or wrong answer to this, but I can only share what's helped me and what I've seen help other people. Is oftentimes we actually first need to like learn how to absolutely love those masks and see how those masks have helped us. Even if we're not aware of what the masks are, we probably have an idea of what they are. And then usually we'll first go to like, how do I get rid of this mask? Just like the question, right? But oftentimes it's like the journey of healing trauma too, is like we first actually have to see how it deeply helps us, so that we don't have the pressure of trying to fix it first, because that pressure will lock it into place even more. There's a magic that happens when we first can recognize those masks or those parts of ourselves that have been filtered. A powerful process could be journaling or going into a breathwork session and really just doing some self-discovery around like how have those really supported me?
Mhm.
How have those helped me, kept me safe in my life? What have they given me? And a lot of times when we learn to like love the resistance, um, that's usually the path of those things falling away, not from like a forceful needing to like clear them out and get rid of them, but when you can see the adaptiveness of them, a lot of the times they'll start to fall away.
Yeah, amazing. What do you do if you can't meet your partner and their vices or flaws where they are?
Hmm. Yeah, this is a deep one here. Well, in my own experience, uh, the first question I would ask myself is, am I in love with this person's potential, or am I in love with who this person is right now? And that's a painful question because maybe you've been in this relationship for a long time and you haven't realized it, but you might have, you're in love with this person, what they could be. And the question I always have to ask myself in relationship is, if this person never changed, which they're going to, but run the thought experiment. If this person never changed who they are right now, am I okay with that? Am I okay? And that will give you the answer of like, I love this person for who they are right here, right now. And beyond loving, because love is one thing, but can I be in a relationship which is deeper than love? It's like, I want to do life with you, which is like, there's all the logistics that happen with that too. And there's all like, you are combining nervous systems with this person. So it's incredibly important. But that question is it's a powerful one to sit with. If this person never changed, would I still want to be with them right now? Vices and all.
Yeah. So, continuing on the path of relationship questions, how can we address abusive relationships with our partners who suffer mental illness and substance abuse in a healthy way? And um, that's an expansive question.
I hope that the first thing I want to say with these questions is that I know that there's so much nuance behind all of them. So I hope you can not necessarily take exactly what I'm saying for the answer, because I'm giving just some thoughts and opinions around them. But every situation has so much nuance behind them. So it's like, work within that question, like you're probably, if it's something that you guys can't figure out together, well, then a lot of the times that's where a third party support can be so helpful. And I think there's a lot of stigma around having a third person, whether it's a therapist or a coach or a guide in some sort of way, can create this feeling like, oh my God, it's broken. So we need to go find a therapist, which I actually think would be even better if most relationships before something was broken, they used a therapist or a third party to like just deepen connection just to optimize things before you get to certain issues. So, I've in my experience, and I've gone to different relationship counselors and therapists. When you can't figure out the thing together, a third party can be so helpful. Can be so helpful. But for that question, that's a deep question, and it's probably, in my opinion, like I would give the same answer. Is that I would try to find a way to figure out, where am I resisting loving this person? Like, where am I? How am I contributing to the diagnosis by anchoring that diagnosis even deeper? How am I contributing to those vices by shaming or guilting or judging? Can I welcome this person fully? And if being honest with yourself, if you are not able to, meaning that it would be really powerful for you to figure out in your life, what are your non negotiables? Because those will tell you where the hard line is at. And that's incredibly important to know. because everything after that hard line is like, cool. These are the places that I'm down to work through. I'm down to work on with this person. And like that's guaranteed in a relationship. But if you don't know where your hard line is at, you're going to be constantly questioning, should I be in this relationship or should I not be in this relationship? What am I committing to? This is my hard line and my non negotiables. And if those are crossed, then I can't be in this relationship anymore. And that way I don't have to utilize the energy to make that decision. It's like, it's solid. And revisiting that, is important. But then everything else is like, well, if I love this person and they're struggling, how can I continue to like, instead of throwing guilt and shame or judgment, how do I welcome it?
Yeah. It reminds me of like what you've said many times, that inherently it's not about learning where you need to set your boundaries. It's about learning every facet of yourself so that the boundaries naturally present themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if I'm constantly having to live life where I'm needing to figure out where to put my boundaries instead of just kind of like knowing what my alignment is and what I'm here to do, my intention, what I'm not here to do, that's my hard line, then it gives me a container to show me like okay, what am I able to play with? What am I able to work with and digest with somebody or with myself in my own life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some more questions that came through. Um, but just to be like mindful of the time window that we've set for today
Yeah,
for the podcast, I would love to, all of you that popped in these questions, I'm actually going to put in a post within the school community asking for some questions. What are some topics that you'd love for Stephen and I to expand upon in some future podcasts?
absolutely.
And this can really help us to start to have a direction in which we can move to not only continue to deepen the conversation here, but also to just deepen this connection within the community to help each other to continue to grow and move forward.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or in the podcast and you're not in the school community, we'll put the link below so you can hop in there, engage with us, ask us questions. And that is, we really want to be here to support you and know what are the topics that you'd like us to get in and mind meld and tease apart for you all. So we appreciate you showing up, listening to this. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, share it with a friend. Um, that's how you can help us spread this work more than anything.
Exactly. Well, Jaggers, any final thoughts or words that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I loved this conversation. And yeah, just like I said, every situation is nuanced. There is no black or white. And that's why, like, nobody can give the answers to you. This is something that I've had to learn over and over again is, and this is why I love just this somatic breath work, or just taking a somatic approach to things because a lot of the times in coaching and in other modalities, like people will try to give you the answer, but you'll never be able to keep it if it doesn't come from you. So, take what we say with a grain of salt, learn to feel inside your own body what's true for you. And if there was something that resonated with you, the best way to implement it is and the best way that I've found to really embody this idea of you're a verb or you're an iteration is to pick one thing that landed for you and run it as an experiment in your life. Say, I'm going to give myself 30 days to see if I can, you know, love this person that I'm in a relationship for all of the things, like with all of the vices and all of the things that I don't like and enjoy. I'm going to give myself 30 days to try fully to love all of the parts of themselves, withhold any judgment, shame, guilt around it, and see how I feel on the other side of that. So if something landed for you, do a 30-day experiment. Look at your life as like I'm a scientist And if I feel like something might be true, well, that's my hypothesis, and let's run an experiment on it and see how I feel at the end of it.
Great advice. Such great advice. Ah, really loved this conversation, Jaggers. Like
This was great. Thank you,
today
Adam.
was a fun one, and I'm really excited to dive in on the next one.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
We'll see you next time.